Hello everyone and welcome back to Natha and Deer's Guide to Everything, and welcome back to Legend Forge, an episode for a series we haven't seen in a while. If you're new to the channel or just unfamiliar with this series, it's a series where we take characters from pop culture, games, movies, TV, and we mold them into something playable for D&D as best we can. I should preface this is always just the way I would do it, how I would embody that character, and often we need to just take a lot of inspiration and use a lot of flavor to really make it work, and that is definitely true for our character today, which is Richter Belmont from Castlevania Nocturne, a fantastic series on Netflix. I would highly recommend you watch it if you haven't watched it already. The original Castlevania with Trevor and Cypher is also fantastic. Watch Castlevania Nocturne, can't recommend it enough. But that is the build we're doing today. We're going to be embodying him right at the end of the series when he's at his most powerful, essentially. That's what we're going for today. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. But without further ado, I think it's time we jumped into this and we can create Richter Belmont. Here we are on the home landing page. We're going to tick on homebrew content. That is important. And we're going to turn on critical role content as well as customize your origin, all those other things. But it's pretty standard stuff. We don't change a lot here. Just we want as many options as possible, basically. So here he is, Richter Belmont. We'll jump into the race. This is a straightforward one, as most of the characters in these build videos are. We choose variant human just because we get access to that feat, gives us more options out the gate. Our ability score increase, we've gone for 1 in dex and 1 in charisma, and I'll go into why when we reach the ability score screen. Skills, we've gone for acrobatics because anime, Naruto running, jumping off walls, flying around, you need that definitely. And for a feat, we've actually gone with fighting initiate, and this is just to give a little bit more flavor. So Richter does favor a weapon in one hand, which is usually the whip, the very famous whip from the show. You do see him use a short sword sometimes, but he does seem to favor the whips. We've gone for dueling fighting styles so that when he's just holding the whip, he is more lethal with that, +2 bonus to damage rolls. You could just as easily go for thrown weapon fighting if you wanted to, because Richter throws a lot of daggers and icy daggers. Oh, and I should mention, spoilers for Castlevania Nocturne. If you haven't seen it already, go out and do that now and then come back, or if you don't care that much, just come and watch. If you know what he's like in the video games, then you know to what kind of power he gets to, I guess. We're going to keep it with dueling for now. For our class, super straightforward. We're going to be at level 9, which I think is about right for where he is in the series, and I've got everything I wanted to out of these 9 levels. We've gone with Monk as his starting martial class, just simply because more than Trevor, he uses hand-to-hand combat and things like that over dual-wielding weapons and using his environment and things like that. So I think Monk fits perfectly, as well as you can probably already see it. It's Way of the Sun Soul is our subclass, and it just fits perfectly. Let's go into why. So standard Monk stuff, you get a D8 hit points, not fantastic, not too poor either. For a martial class, it's kind of meh, but that's just a commentary about Monk. We don't need to go into that. For proficiencies, we've gone with athletics. You need that to be an anime type character, I think, and Richter is strong. Unfortunately, strength is actually our dump stat in this build, but you know, and well, we've gone for history because Richter does know a little bit about Belmont history, and that's something he realizes towards the end of the series. He knows who he is, he becomes who he needs to be, basically, in the moment. I'll try to avoid specific spoilers, but whatever. Woodcarver's tools, you have to pick a tool. I didn't know what to pick. Pick anything, it doesn't matter. At first level, you also get unarmored defense, which makes our AC 10 plus our dex plus our wisdom modifier. He doesn't use a shield and he's not wearing any armor. It just fits. Martial arts at first level, so basically this is just Monk in a nutshell. You can use unarmed strikes instead of a weapon and they do decent damage, basically, and you use dex instead of strength for those things. This also talks about having Monk weapons, which is things like short swords or any simple melee weapons that don't have the two-handed or heavy property. So just a bit of versatility there if you still want to do damage with a dagger or a short sword, something like that. Key at second level, we unlock Key. This gives us access to Flurry of Blows, Patient Defense, and Step of the Wind. These are just your bread and butter. Amongst the Flurry of Blows, you can make 2 more unarmed strikes as a bonus action should you choose to. Patient Defense, spend a key point, take the dodge action, just make you very evasive. And Step of the Wind, you can take the disengage or dash by spending a key point, and your jump distance is doubled. Step of the Wind is just, I am an anime character. Patient Defense, also the same, like a slow-mo punch that misses their face, perhaps. And Flurry of Blows is All the characters in this show just get multiple attacks per chain, so it just makes sense. Unarmored movement at second level because Naruto run anime stuff, you just need that, it just works. As I already mentioned, Way of the Sun Soul is our subclass, which we unlock at third level. And the thinking behind this kind of comes full circle when we get to the end of the build. So you'll just have to wait for that bit, and I'll try and explain a bit as I go along. So first major spoiler, we do have deflect missiles here. Now, while he specifically doesn't do this in the show, I found a way to flavor it. In the big episode, I think it's like episode 7, Richter gets his powers back. Basically, he can do magic again. And what you find with one of the attacks is, I'll see if I can find the clip of it, he deflects a hit with icy gauntlets that he makes on himself. They smash, and then he turns them into knives immediately. Deflect missiles, right? It fits perfectly. Or you could just flavor it as you send something back. But whichever way you want to flavor it, deflect missiles does work because he's very nimble and very good at blocking, as we see as an expert hand-to-hand combatant. Next up, we have Radiant Sunbolt, which is an amazing feature of Way of the Sun Soul. It potentially gives you a range spell. It's very, very good. It has a range of 30 feet. You add your dex modifier to the attack roll, and its damage is radiant. Now, I would just say, as soon as Richter gets his magic back, basically, if you wanted to start at level 9, this is just your standard issue little fireball that he can fire out, basically. I don't ever think we see him just send a fireball, but it just works. But you could also just flavor this as an ice knife or something instead. So there's no downsides to this. When you take the attack action on your turn and use this special attack as part of it, you can spend a key point to make the special attack twice as a bonus action. So if you do this, you can do it a couple more times. Really, really cool. You could, as I said, you could flavor that as knives being thrown out, multiple fireballs, something like that. At fourth level, we power through double into dexterity. We need that. We're a monk. Dexterity is everything, as well as wisdom, but dexterity is everything. Another one at fourth level, slow fall. Anime goodness, they can jump off things, they can basically fly, they just glide around arenas and never seem to hit the floor. Slow fall is perfect. Extra attack, does what it says on the tin. Stunning strike stuns things when you use key points. Does what it says on the tin, basically. You can immobilize a vampire perhaps with a fiery punch to the gut or an icy punch around the face. Stunning strike works perfectly, and this is all about flavor, all about giving you inspiration on how you want to build this character. This is just my version. 6th level, key empowered strikes, we can punch ghosts. Our attacks are considered magical. Unarmored movement, more anime Naruto running and shenanigans, you need it. Searing Arc Strike is where I think it really excels into literally exactly what he does in the show. At 6th level, you gain the ability to channel your ki into searing waves of energy. Immediately after you take the attack action on your turn, you can spend 2 key points to cast a Burning Hands spell as a bonus action. Amazing, for one, literally amazing. He literally does this in the show. He runs up to a creature, palms them in the face, and then Burning Hands destroys them. It just fits. You can do it for as many key points as you have, basically, until you run out, which is incredible. It just makes sense. It gives you that amazing flavor of being able to do multiple attacks and this burning flame option to really punish any undead creatures that are coming at you. At 7th level, we have evasion. Anime shenanigans take half damage from AoE effects like, I don't know, a fireball, or if Ursabet, for example, in Castlevania Nocturne sends a black ball of death energy out at you, it just makes sense, right? Stillness of Mind at 7th level, you can use your action to end one effect on yourself that's causing you to be charmed or frightened. There is a moment where Richter is frightened, all hope is lost, but he literally uses Stillness of Mind, remembers his loved ones, remembers who he is, and he ends the frightened condition, unlocks all of his power, and then absolutely messes them up. So as I mentioned, now we move on to 2 levels in Sorcerer. So we're in level 9, which I think fits for where the characters are at the end of season 1. I assume there's going to be a season 2. You could pick this up first or second. I recommend second. It fits better thematically if you're literally playing Richter Belmont. So we don't care about the hit points of the creatures. The spell casting goes through charisma, not ideal. Speaker magicians originally is learned knowledge. So actually I would probably say that they're wizards, but Richter just seems to have innate magic within him. So that is definitely more sorceress. Now we've gone for Sorcerer's Origin Storm Sorcery. And this kind of came to my attention playing Baldur's Gate 3 recently, where they can just fly around the battlefield after casting a spell. I didn't know that. That's really good. Really, really good. So outside of Wind Speaker, which we don't care about, we can speak primordial languages basically. You can flavor that however you want. I don't know. Maybe he has read an old Belmont esoteric text and can talk to. Doesn't matter. We don't care. Tempestuous magic is what we're here for. Essentially, if you cast a spell of first level or higher, you can fly up to 10 feet without provoking opportunity attacks. The flavor here is endless. One, as I mentioned a million times, anime gliding around the battlefield cartoon shenanigans every time you cast a spell, of which you'll see the options that we've got shortly. So including Burning Hands, which we've just acquired from Monk. We could do an attack, do Burning Hands, and then jump and fly away and on to the next thing and do another attack or whatever it might be. Or we can flavor it like I punch something in the face. If they go down, I need to get across the battlefield quickly. I cast Burning Hands as a bonus action. It launches me 10 feet. Maybe you haven't got any more movement left. Now you do. And we do see Richter use this in the show. We see him use his fire abilities to move around the battlefield a bit quicker or to stop himself. Literally using them like jets is fantastic. And we've seen Cypher do the same thing in the old series too. Finally, second level, we get Font of Magic, which essentially just gives us sorcery points. We have nothing to use them on yet, but essentially this just equals more spell slots because you can convert sorcery points into spell slots if you need to. Let's move on very swift to the abilities. We've had to make some sacrifices to make this work, and I think this is the most accurate build at level 9 and at where they are in the show. This may need to evolve and change over time. To get those sorcery spells to work, we did have to put a few points in charisma, hence why it's there. Otherwise, I would have bumped up constitution a little bit more, made him a bit more healthy. But you can offset that by perhaps changing the first feat I picked up. So I picked up Fighting Initiate. You could change that to Tough instead, give yourself a little bit more HP. That's definitely an option for this character and one you could recommend, really. So we're dumping Strength because we have to. 15 in Dexterity, that's our primary stat. 12 in Constitution, 10 Intelligence, because I think Richter does have some battlefield intelligence for sure. Like, he ain't stupid, he's really good at that. And we have proficiency in Arcana and History because we're a Belmont and we're a descendant of the Belnades as well. It just makes sense. Wisdom powers our monk stuff, Charisma powers our sorcerer stuff. And so our end scores are 8 Strength, 18 Dex, 12 Con, 10 Intelligence, 14 Wisdom, 14 Charisma at level 9. I would probably focus on getting that dex up to max if you're going to level this up anymore. Let's jump into the description. Really straightforward. We've got the Haunted one. There is a moment, I guess I don't have to spoil it, with a powerful vampire at the start of the series that does something awful to Richter, and he is haunted by it. That's kind of the arc of the whole series. That's his little private battle that he's going through, and that's give us proficiency in Arcana and Survival because he is a Belmont and he survived such an encounter with a powerful creature. Equipment we don't care about, so let's jump straight into the character sheet. Fantastic. So here we are on the character sheet. Lovely background and a very cool Bigby's hand frame that looks like one of his fire punches. Highlights on here are, of course, our 8 in Acrobatics, which we need, plus 8 in Acrobatics, plus 4 in Arcana, not too bad, plus 3 in Athletics, not so good, plus 4 in History, and plus 6 to Survival, which is definitely commendable. And I did have to modify this slightly because typically a monk or a sorcerer aren't proficient with a whip weapon. So you'll just have to ask your DM, can I be proficient with a whip, please? And they'll probably say yes, because whips generally are terrible weapons if you're trying to optimize and all that kind of stuff. Languages we don't care too much about. We don't see him speak anything else, but maybe he can recognize some infernal, primordial, abyssal, whatever language demons and devils speak, right? Let's jump into the spells, first of all. As this is where most of the flavor is for the character. Blue Flame Blade is Green Flame Blade that I've renamed. He literally does light his whip on fire. That's what this is. Green Flame Blade can spread to other creatures. Just makes sense, and it's a bit of extra damage on every attack. Control Flames, you can do that now. We see him jet around the battlefield. Firebolt, you can just shoot a small beam of energy or channel fire into someone. You can just say, yes, that's a firebolt. Or it doesn't really work, but you could say it's an ice knife because it does a bit more damage than Ray of Frost. But really, you want to use Ray of Frost if you're throwing an ice knife for flavor there. That's what those are for. First level, we've already talked about Burning Hands. I don't need to go into that anymore. The DC isn't great, only at 14. You'd be relying on your party to cast Bane or something like that to make this come off a bit more, I think. First level, we have literally Ice Knife. Very, very good spell. Can explode in AoE. There's no reason why Richter couldn't throw out a large Ice Knife and have that explode. We have two options for the increased armor class. You can see it's 18 at the moment, but I do have an item on, so let me just pull that off. Mage armor works because you'll often see Richter in the show towards the end of the night. He literally pulls up his fist and ice forms around his fists. He uses them to block, and he can do it as a reaction. It looks like something tries to hit him, and a bit of ice forms on his neck, which explodes, and he turns it into daggers to throw. Mage armor. That is mage armor. Increase your AC. Give yourself ice knuckles. Why not? And in the same vein, we have shield 2. So you can see actually that 14 charisma doesn't hurt us too much because we don't have many spells that rely on that score. Plus 6 is respectable. That's not awful. So it'll still work. Your shield is just super effective. You can say, I put an ice shield in front of me or a fire shield, and all the flavors there already. Now let's go into the inventory. Of course, we have the returning Belmont's Vampire Killer, which in this specific form, I made this probably 2 years ago now for my Trevor Belmont Castlevania build. I have not changed it. This actual form, it takes the shape of the kind of the chain whip, the Morning Star that he wields in that, but it totally works for how powerful the whip is or portrayed in Castlevania Nocturne. So I'm not going to change it. It's a +2 weapon, deals bonus damage to fiends and undead and lights them on fire. Also, when you kill a vampire with it, it doesn't allow them to use a Misty Escape feature, which is not a feature generally in Castlevania anyway. We do see when a vampire gets hit with this, they usually die unless they're particularly powerful. Very, very good weapon and needed, obviously. The famous whip. Next up, we have something optional. This is the optional homebrew that I would recommend if you really want to embody the character, but if you want it to be balanced and you're trying to convince your DM to play a similar character, maybe don't go for this, but it is Just's guidance. There's some flavor text at the top there. This is just to essentially embody the moment in an item where he rediscovers his powers. The only things here are what I felt was missing from what I could do with normal standard rules of D&D. So essentially a +2 bonus to AC when attuned to these, and that is to just represent his newfound speed, form, magic, and those ice shields he can conjure, as well as on a hit with an unarmed strike or a monk weapon, you can choose for the damage to be cold or fire instead. We see often in those last series, he does punch with ice and he punches with fire regularly. There was no way to get that other than like Green Flame Blade. There's no real ice one, so I thought I'd make an item to try and really increase that power trip, that power fantasy. That is it. I hope you can kind of detect the synergy here, moving swiftly around the battlefield as a monk does with all that unarmed movement, 45 movement speed. That is it. That is Richter Belmont, level 9, monk 7, sorcerer 2. Very potent, very powerful, especially with the homebrew additions, but absolutely I'm sure this is playable in any game without too much wiggle room from your DM. All you've got to do basically is be proficient with a whip and you can embody this character perfectly with this build. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you did. And I think I'm going to do another Castlevania Nocturne build next. Much simpler though, that one. So I'll see you there perhaps. This has been Nathan Deer's Guide to Everything. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.